A Daily Mail investigation on Saturday preempted the Sunday Times report and found sick workers, people who knew they were ill, still going to work and earning as little as £4 an hour, mainly in the east of the city, where the new coronavirus outbreak is centred, because they were scared of losing their jobs if they stayed at home. Now, this is one of those weird mornings where we could perhaps book a campaigner, and, you know, they do important work in this field. We could book a politician, perhaps, or a kind of prominent pundit to pronounce upon it, but I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to put my trust, as I do every morning at 10 o'clock, more in you than in me. And I'm just going to ask whether this is a world that you know about. 10 minutes after 10 is the time. It's not an unreasonable request, but it is one that leads us into incredibly difficult territory. I have a friend who's Bangladeshi British, and her parents don't speak much English. It's not the family that they speak at home. And when this first lockdown was announced, the second lockdown, the first of the second lockdowns, if that makes sense, was announced, she was very concerned about language, about the message reaching the people that needed to be reached in Leicester because of language issues. The media that they consume is largely sourced from the subcontinent. You know, the satellites can pick up programmes that are, unknown to most people in this country who don't have any Indian or Southeast Asian heritage. But she explained to me very articulately why she was worried that the people who needed to be told about the lockdown may not even hear about it. And then you have, and of course, you know, I appreciate that I'm trying to steer clear of the most obvious political pratfalls this morning, but you don't need me to tell you how much effort over the years has been put into trying to defund translation services and to complain about spending money on NHS advice that gets translated into different languages. The madness of that couldn't be clearer, could it, today, when there's a very real possibility that people working in disgusting conditions in sweatshops in Leicester don't understand the health warnings that are being put out by the government. So I want you to tell me what you know about this. I mean, how big an issue is it? When I say to you sweatshops, do you object to the phrase? Do you have a problem with the language? And then if you're thinking, well, this has got nothing to do with me, I promise you it does. Because how do you think they can knock out T-shirts for £2? I mean, seriously, I've had this conversation a million times with people who, frankly, should know better. You go into some of these shops, and I don't want to name any specifically, although the Daily Mail goes in very hard on one of these companies today, but I don't have the... I didn't conduct the research, I didn't do the journalism, but we've all got in the back of our minds now, when I say £2 for a T-shirt, we've all got a brand that pops into our heads, haven't we? And how could that possibly be justified? Either people in this country are getting paid a pittance to produce such cheap garments, or people in other countries are. And the absence of any sort of conscience wrestling on this issue is, well, that's an issue. That's a thing we can talk about today as well. I mean, it's close to modern slavery, isn't it? This kind of thing. Don't ring me to say no, it isn't. They get paid because it's the detail that is so dismal and so gross. And this is Britain in the 21st century. Okay, so 13 minutes after 10. What can you tell me about this? I'll take anything you've got. Did you work in a place like this yourself? Do your family work in one? Are you familiar with it? If you're listening in Leicester, are you offended by the way I'm describing this story? If so, tell me why. Set me straight. Help me out. 0345 60973. If you can contribute, you will get through, because this isn't one of those mornings where I just throw open the phone lines and invite you to pontificate upon relatively theoretical and nebulous issues. I want you to educate me on this. 0345 60973, and I want you to tell me how this happened.
So it is a little bit frustrating to listen to James get so close to the answer. He's almost there, but he just can't say it, or he just can't see it. The answer is capitalism. We have created a system that convinces people they need these garments, these £2 or £1.50 pair of shoes or hat or t-shirt or whatever. The system has created artificial want. People don't need these things. And unfortunately, what will happen to these things when they're thrown away is they will end up in landfills. So we create things that we don't need. They're marketed to us to convince us that we do need them. We wear them once, twice, maybe 3 times, and then we dump them and they're thrown into the landfill. They create environmental problems and the cycle continues again. And of course, we can't forget the human element here, the people who create these garments, the people who work in terrible conditions to create these garments. Unfortunately, our society, when we're confronted with issues like this, is to respond with quick fixes, attempting to cure the symptoms and not the core problem. When we see factory conditions like this, our reaction is to, well, we need to pay these people more money, or we need to improve their conditions. But this is not looking at the core problem. The core problem is capitalism. The idea that we're creating artificial demand in order to fulfill perpetual growth. We always want to sell more. We always want to produce more in order to sell more, irrespective of the people who are damaged by it and the environment that is damaged by it. Capitalism doesn't care about ordinary people. It doesn't care about the environment. So if we want a system that continually produces more and continually demands more, now this can be achieved in some industries through innovation, but some other industries, it's not possible to innovate anymore. It's not possible to use new technology to reduce the cost and produce more. So someone has to take the hit. Someone has to suffer the consequences. And of course, it will be the working class, the people who work in these sweatshops, the people who are on the front line, on the production line, producing these garments. And the companies, at the end of the day, will view these people as disposable. If they're sick, if they have problems, throw them away, we can get new ones. This is the system that James O'Brien is almost describing. He's getting so close to it, it's a little bit frustrating. And unfortunately, he will attempt to fix the symptoms. He will attempt to raise these issues. And I think it's very important to raise these issues. I commend him for doing that. But fixing the symptoms will not fix the core problem. Now, what could be a possible solution? Well, a possible solution would be to educate people, to convince people that you don't need that hat, you don't need that extra t-shirt, you don't need that pair of gloves that's going to be put in a cupboard and not used for whenever until it's eventually thrown away. We need to evaluate the goods and services that are produced by private companies. We need to teach children to develop critical thinking skills so that they are able to analyze and understand how capitalism permeates every single aspect of our society today. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. Why not become a Patreon and enjoy access to our Discord server where we share news, chat, and have some fun? If you become a patron, you can also make video suggestions on topics that are important to you. Check it out via the link in the description.